All right, I have 7:05. I will go ahead and reconvene us back into order for the business part of our monthly meeting. First item up is agenda consideration.
I do have a question about the consent agenda. Or not consent agenda, the board action. Is there an ability to pull things out to separate on that where we don't have to vote it all on one block?
Yes.
Okay, just want to check.
So as like opposed to doing A through D.
Yeah, instead of doing A through, because I have a couple different things on it.
So, I hear a motion on.
I'll make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
Motion in a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Our agenda is set as was presented then. 5B, public comments. So I believe we just have one group that would like to offer us some public comment. And so if you want to go ahead and come on up, introduce yourself and
Okay,
you got work with it.
thank you. My name is Mike Lader. I live in Hubbard. My family moved here about 20 years ago. We've raised our 5 children here in the district. 3 of them have graduated from North Marion High School. 2 of them currently attend members of the girls soccer team. One's a junior and one's a senior. Soccer's been a big part of our life, and the soccer community is important to us. And we would like to call attention to some of the, I guess, current state of the soccer facilities at North Marion High School. So what I'm requesting from the board is an opportunity to work with you in a working session to discuss a project plan which we think has value to you. And I'd like to cover some of the highlights tonight. As you might be aware, the North Marion High School soccer teams have no facilities here at the district. The JV baseball outfield is the only designated place for both boys and girls JV and varsity soccer teams to practice and play their games. The field does not meet the minimum standards of NFHS dimensions. And we consistently play our home playoff games away from the high school. If you talk to some of the players, you'll recognize that the field is dry in the summer and hard on their knees. In the fall, because of all of the overuse, the field is unplayable. We would also like to see night games for family members in the community to come watch one of the most successful 4A soccer teams in boys and girls over the last decade come participate in evening games. So what we're proposing is a three-phase solution, one that builds upon itself and can be deployed over several years and has increasing costs. The first is to deploy practice fields over in the Johnston Farm property. With irrigation, we believe those fields could present an opportunity to diminish the overuse of the current facility. And then we'd also like to see an expansion of the current grass field so that it meets the minimum requirements of NFHS. We would like to propose that you deploy field lights. If there's an opportunity to replace baseball's lights, if you could add additional poles to that location, you could also illuminate a soccer field. And then finally, there's a proposal to deploy a turf field into that area that's big enough to support soccer, JV baseball, PE classes, and local youth programs. And the nice thing about this project is all of that work is none of it's throwaway. Okay. At the conclusion of the meeting, there's some presentation work that will be available to you. I've handed out some slides if it's interesting to you, but it really just goes over and talks about expanding the grass field, deploying 2 irrigated practice fields, estimates from local vendors, including Living Color. We tried to do a little work on how you would put a water source to those fields so they could be irrigated. Sounds like more work needs to happen there. And we're hoping that we can work with the district on that topic. We have estimates for lights And we'd like to see lights deployed if possible. And those estimates are in this proposal. And the third phase, which is the artificial turf field that can be more than just a soccer field, something for the whole district and the community to get behind. So it's my request to the board to have an opportunity to review these details in a working session. And I hope that you can see an opportunity to do that and add us to your next working session agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
No.
We're good? Okay. All right, moving on to item 6, board communication. So North Marion celebrates Classified Employees Week, which is, was March 6th to the 10th, but Classified Employee Appreciation Week is celebrated every year during the first full week of March, whereas the education of youth is essential for the future of the community, state, country, and world. And whereas classified employees are the backbone of the public education system, and whereas classified employees work directly with students, educators, parents, volunteers, business partners, and community members. And whereas classified employees support the smooth operation of offices, the safety and maintenance of buildings and properties, and the safe transportation, healthy nutrition, and direct instruction of students. And whereas our community depends upon the trust classified employees to serve students. And whereas classified employees with their diverse talents and true dedication nurture students throughout the school year. Now therefore be it resolved that North Marion School Board of Directors proclaims March 6th through the 10th, 2023 as Classified Employee Appreciation Week. And be it for the resolve that the North Marion Board of Directors strongly encourages all members of our community to join in this observance, recognizing the dedication, hard work of these individuals.
Yeah.
Sure, if you want to.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next up is 6B board visit from Chemeketa, Dan Watson and Jessica Howard.
Good evening, Chair, board members, and Superintendent. My name is Jessica Howard. I'm the president of Chemeketa Community College. It's my great pleasure to be here today. Thank you for letting us visit. And I'm delighted to be joined by Diane Watson, who is a member of our Board of Education, whose zone includes this school district. And so we make it a habit to come in and visit periodically so we can talk about the students that we share. With that, I'll turn it over to Diane.
I'm really happy to be here tonight, and I've been looking at facts about your school, and you have a wonderful array of professional technical programs and a regular curriculum. And I understand you just had a colt that was born last month. So it's kind of nice to find that out. Anyway, we're here tonight to appreciate this relationship and highlight a few things. And Jessica told me I brought too many handouts along, so she's going to kind of track those. But the first one is this North Marion School District handout, and you should have that at your table. And I'd like to just highlight a few things. For example, last year, 114th North Marion students paid $30 to participate in Chemeketa's College Now program. And they earned 1,066 Chemeketa College credits, saving their family $135 in $135,160 in college tuition. That's an average of 9 credits per student, and over $1,000 per participants that went through that they saved by paying $30 and taking our College Now credits. We're really pleased to be able to do that. 16% of North Marion High School graduates from 2021 enrolled at Chemeketa. We'd like to have more. We actually have a center in Woodburn, and then we have our Brooks campus that is just a half hour from here, where we have like fire science and EMT and diesel mechanics. So that's not too far. We have 50 North Marion High School graduates with a 3.5 or better in high school GPA have enrolled in the Chemeketa Scholars over the past 10 years. This gives them free tuition, and it's a real bonus. They need a 3.5. They take our placement test. They need to be at college level in reading, math, and English, and be in our district, and they can get free tuition. So it's really good to encourage students to do their very best. And so the Scholars Program from North Marion have accumulated a total tuition savings of $238,000. So it's quite a bit. 80 North Marion students, high school students, received the Oregon Promise and enrolled in Chemeketa in the past 5 years. The Oregon Promise recipients from North Marion High who came to Chemeketa have been awarded $139,908 through that program. And you need a 2.5 and apply for financial aid, and it's awarded through the state, depending on what the legislature comes up with. And now it's down to a 2.0. So that's a real good encouragement for students to come here. In the past 5 years, 218 North Marion High School alumni completed a Chemeketa certificate or degree and or transferred from Chemeketa to a four-year institution. A lot of our students do that. They complete the degree or they transfer. Some of the programs that you may be interested about, and here I'm going to start with these, and I hope I get it right. We have a new agriculture complex, and I want to send flyers around here for this. This is state of the art. It's wonderful. The building, for example, is built with all Oregon products, and we have both organic gardens and regular gardens there for the students to work with. But we have a number of programs. One is we have an agribusiness management program, and we have an irrigation technician certificate, and we have a crop health management, and we have a pesticide course. And I'm going to let Jessica go ahead and pass some of these around. But this is something we'd love to have you come and visit our campus and see these programs, because it's just a fantastic facility. We're so grateful. We got it with grants, and we applied for. We had local business and farmers dedicate things like what was it, the greenhouse? And so we need to come and see this. And I know that agriculture is big in this area. So we do have that program. And on top of that, we have over 50 career and technology programs that we offer here. Many of them that we have partnered with different high schools on. We'd love to increase our partnerships with you. And I'm going to pass some of these around too. Further, one of the other things that we have is we have an apprenticeship program here. This is a pre-apprenticeship program that you are probably aware of. It was launched in 2017 with a rigorous application process through BOLI, the Apprenticeship and Training Division, and the interest has been with a lot of other high schools in this area. And so what it means is approved high school teachers can offer the trade skills fundamentals course for participating students through our College Credit Now. They can get 4 college credits, Chemeketa credits for the course, and they are formally registered with BOLI. They can earn OSHA 10 certificate offered by the Mid-Willamette Valley Education Consortium at Chemeketa. They earn a first aid CPR through their high school, and they earn a completion certificate from Chemeketa Apprentice, plus a college swag for achievement ceremonies to recognize their achievement. And like I say, we have over 50 different professional technical programs. And one thing that I like, some of them are kind of built on top of things. You can take some courses and get ready for a job, and then you take a few more courses and get a certificate. Then you can get a degree, an associate's degree of applied science. But then we've got one other layer that just happened, when was it? In the fall, and will happen in this fall, coming fall. And it's a bachelor's of applied science in leadership and management. And it takes on to any Associate of Applied Science degree. So that's really pretty cool. And it's putting us in a really different position because right now we're looking at doing a bachelor's degree in nursing if we can get that through the legislature. So I'm going to turn this over to Jessica to answer any questions and to tell you a little bit more about the Applied Baccalaureate program.
Just briefly, and we want to say that North Marion County is very involved in many of the programs that Diane has explained and talked about a little bit. But this new bachelor's degree is really a total paradigm shift. We're the first community college in the state of Oregon that is offering a bachelor's degree. And that will be offered as of this fall. So we're starting the application process right away for that bachelor's program. Unlike the bachelor's programs that you were more typically thinking about when you think about OSU or U of O or any of the four-year universities, this one is an applied baccalaureate, very similar. Now, those universities I just mentioned have those too. And Oregon Institution of Technology, OIT, Oregon Tech, that is a lot of the degree types that they have. So these are real, this is a real bachelor's degree. But what it does is it builds upon the 2-year CTE, career and technical education program. So think about what a game changer this is for students in high school who are thinking about, do I want to, because normally they've been, I think, presented typically across the nation with 2 kind of tracks. If you're going to continue, you either take a sharp, I'm going to say left, and you're going to go to a university and get a bachelor's degree and maybe further, right? And you can go to a community college first and you can transfer, or you can go directly to the university. Or you can take a sharp right and you can do career and technical education, which typically has some stigma associated with it. It's less theoretical, it's more work with your hands. And the idea is you go to a community college or a technical institute of some kind, and you get exactly what you need to then go right out into the workforce and have an astonishingly well-paying, I will say, career.
Yes.
But with this degree, that sharp right, what you do after you get that 2-year degree and after you are now in the workforce, so you could be a digital design person, you could be a policeman, you could be a fire person, you could be an automotive specialist, you could be any of the 50 CTE programs that we
Electrician.
have. Yeah, like just welder, right?
Yeah, well,
But you've got your 2-year degree and you're out in the workforce, and now you think, you know what, I'd really kind of like to climb the career ladder further. I'd like to become a manager of this shop, or maybe I'd like to own my own shop, or I'd just like to get more, get farther in my career. So this degree is designed for that person who is working, who never has to stop working. There's 1 night a week, it's required, it's all remote, the rest of it's remote. It's a cohort, 2 years later, you end up with a bachelor's degree. One of the wonderful things about it is we're in preliminary conversations with Western Oregon, which has been a great partner with us in developing this bachelor's degree. And I'll hand this out to you so you can check it out. But they're thinking of then the student who gets this applied bachelor's degree will have 1 term's worth of credit in their Master's of Organizational Leadership program. This is what an education ecosystem looks like. This is where things connect. But what it does for the high school student who is considering options is it makes all those options really, really attractive and viable. And then the student can address the path that they are inclined to travel without the sense that one is more viable than another, because this is a pathway that links on to these other pieces. So very exciting stuff. I'll pass that out. We also have a version of it that's for employers, because there are a lot of employers these days who are trying desperately to hang on to the workers they've got and would like nothing more than for them to be developed and to stay. So a lot of employers are really interested in helping pay for the bachelor's degree for their folks. And it's so funny because last thing I'll say is I can talk about this all night. I don't promise you.
and I get excited
And
about
I
it.
know,
Talking about it.
excited by the minute, but I am now talking about this as if the people I'm talking to have, for instance, children or community members who are interested in it. And what I'm finding is they're interested in it because they're the ones who have a 2-year degree and have never gotten that bachelor's degree and would love to get it and would not stop working in order to do that. I mean, it's real life.
Or couldn't stop
Or
working.
couldn't stop. So anyway, this is a total game changer. So I want to pass it out, and I'm finding out too that we have to say this several times for people to really believe it. because it seems so different. But it opens a lot of doors and just another thing to offer our community. So please spread the word, and I'd love to answer any questions if you have some. Yeah.
I'll start. So it's kind of interesting, you're here tonight. I didn't realize it was going to talk like this, but we were talking about the 4-year degree for a couple of months because I am the treasurer for ODE on their CPSO grant money that goes out to all the hospitals in Oregon.
No.
So FFA, FBLA,
Yes, yes, yes.
OSA, and
Yes.
skills and blah, blah, blah. So also I'm the board chair for the last 9 years for Oregon FBLA,
No
Future
kidding.
Business Leaders.
Yes.
Yes.
And so how do I get the details so I can pass this through? Is it just this thing, or do we
You know what I
work
do?
with you directly?
I would, if I were you, I would email me. That doesn't make much sense, does it? I would email me directly and I'll put you in contact with the people who are running this program and developing it at the moment. Because this stacks on its leadership and management. Stacks on to the 2-year applied degree that's very specific. So this is essentially broadening skills coming out, but it's,
Understood.
yeah, there's a lot to talk about with regard
At
to.
our FFA conference, we're handing out, because I know at FBLA, I hand out about $14,000 a year in scholarships to around, so we would like to maybe come up with some kind of scholarships to send to you kids to your way for this program.
I think that'd be great because you realize also that if a community college is offering the bachelor's degree, it's going to be less expensive too. So there's that piece,
And this
but
is at the Salem campus, right?
Yes, it is.
yes, but as I said, it's just one night a week.
But it's,
So
but if you're going down there, that's where you would.
it's
Yeah.
Tuesday nights. They've decided. I don't know how they made that decision, but it's Tuesday nights.
So we have a lot of kids we can look up with information. from you.
That would be wonderful. But jessica.howard@chemeketa.edu, or simply if you check out find me. I'm easy to find.
Okay, that was.
Yeah.
She's
So-
not
one more
easy to
question.
catch, but she's easy to find.
So not just with the pesticide program, but the other certificate program as well. And the reason is because I used to be the mayor. So do you take this, help the student all the way through the licensing? Or do you stop before the license?
In many, I can't speak specifically to that, but in many cases, what we do is we embed the industry credential into the program, or it is the culminating effort of the program.
Because the mayors will pay more for somebody who's got a pesticide license.
Of course,
Right? You gotta have
Absolutely.
that license,
And it-
and other things too.
right. Yeah, but again, if you email me that specific question, I can answer it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
Anybody else?
I have questions, but I'm not sure exactly who will answer these. First of all, thanks for your presentation. These are a lot of really exciting options for our community as a whole and our students too. And your enthusiasm to continue to grow in new ways that are meeting the needs is really exciting. So thank you for that. I'm like asking some questions based on how I've seen the interaction between college courses here and advanced rigorous curriculum for our students.
Mhm.
You know, one of our strategic planning things is really to provide rigorous course offerings for all students.
Mhm.
And so I just want to hear
Yeah.
how the high school student within our doors benefits and how that looks, and because this district doesn't offer AP classes, right? That's what a lot of schools will across the country, but our district doesn't. And so, you know, how is that decision made and where is that, and what is the benefit of using a program like yours within our building?
I'm glad you asked that. I used to work in K-12 and I used to teach AP.
Mhm.
We have typically, it is, the difficulty with AP is that it's up to the university whether they will accept the credit based on a high stakes exam, where you can make a 5, 4, a 3, and it depends on the institution. I went to an institution that wouldn't accept any AP credit, period. Didn't matter if you made a 5. It's very difficult to get a 5 on an AP exam, but students do get it. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Diane, it's from our world as well.
Yeah.
The difference between an AP course that leads to a high stakes exam that a lot of students have some difficulty with because it's a very performative high stakes moment is that the dual credit course is a college course. And so you have a lot of students for whom that high stakes exam could be problematic, who don't find the opportunities to be successful just because the model is different. Now, the thing with the dual credit approach, which means that we are teaching a college course here on site, and it's also qualifying for the high school credit, is that the requirements in Oregon are very, very rigorous. You have to get accredited through the Higher Education Coordinating Commission for each one of these courses. So the syllabus is examined, and there's a whole peer review system that involves instructors as well as AP coordinators and not AP, I'm sorry, dual credit coordinators and such. It's extremely rigorous. And then of course we're accredited by our accrediting agency, but that is in addition to the step we have to take through the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. Every faculty, every high school teacher here who teaches for us has the same qualifications as our instructors on our campuses. And so they're hired through our HR department exactly the same way as the instructors on site. So the issue of quality is, it's a real thing, because it is, without that quality, it is not the same course and it doesn't have the same rigor. What the difference could be, and sometimes is, the time involved in taking the course. So it may take an entire senior year, for instance, to get the college course, because you're getting the college course and the high school course. But it is the exact same content as the course that's being offered anywhere on our college campus.
And it's transcribed
And it's
by our college.
Yeah, which is different than AP.
And it doesn't say it was taken in high school.
Right.
It's transcribed we're an accredited school.
Yeah,
So
so
then-
you have a transcript, college
You have
transcript
college transcript.
with the course.
So then any of our teachers who are, let's say authorized.
Yeah, So
Sorry.
they're our faculty.
Yeah, so they, no, I just forgot my question. Okay, any of our teachers who are qualified to do this, what sort of training and or accreditation or continuing, like, do they get feedback? You know, if we're doing annual teacher evaluations, how does that system fit in with the course that they're teaching that's accredited with you? Do you
Well-
do annual evaluations on what those teachers are doing, or?
It's exactly what we do with our folks on, in our college,
Uh-huh.
right? We don't have the same systems of evaluation that exist at another institution or high school. So whatever the evaluation practices are at the I'm pointing over here, at the high school are their own thing. We have our own entirely different kind of process. And then,
So what does that look like?
well, it depends on whether, what type of dual credit we're doing. So if it's a career and technical education dual credit, it's a little bit different. It depends on the course often. We have one course that we're doing, it's called sponsored dual credit for the history course that has been offered as of, I guess, last spring. In that one, the supervision is very, very, very tight, because that instructor does not actually have the 30 graduate credits in the discipline. So the person who does is our person. So our person is the instructor of record, and there's a lot of engagement between our person and the person here, because this is the person who is listed on the record as ensuring the quality of the course.
Sure.
Sometimes that can be challenging, because it seems to suggest that this person doesn't know what they're doing, which is essentially not the case, but it is a super collaborative effort. If the instructor has the credentials to be hired as a faculty member with Chemeketa, then that's on the front end, that's before they ever start doing the work. And because they're on site here, the evaluation processes here are the ones that are in play.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, I think it helps. What else am I in here? I guess then just my other question is, as far as the district, like, the resources that we invest into those teachers being able to fulfill those here. Personnel is always a problem, right? That came out wrong. Personnel availability, right?
Yeah.
We never have as many bodies as we need. So,
So sometimes you have to encourage people who
Mhm.
you know are interested in furthering their education in the content area in order to be able to teach at a college level.
Right,
You find them, you ask them, and if they say, yeah, I really, really want to do that, and you help them do that. And that's what we're currently doing.
okay,
And many of our courses, where we're reaching out to get people to either one, consider English as a ESOL, to support English learners in the classroom, or emerging bilingual students. For people who want to learn more about serving students with different needs,
Mhm.
and whatever, do they want to focus on behavior, do they want to focus on autism, do they want to focus on occupational therapy, do they want to, if you want to work in a department where special programs operate, or do you want to be an English language development teacher, do you want, so we're asking instructional assistants, we're asking our certified staff who have master's degree or seeking master's degree, hey, if you take a few more classes, you can teach Schmecker.
Mhm.
And then they have a partnership because you have someone who's interested in working on it. You have a staff member that's taking remote classes from Gettysburg University in order to have the American history that he needs to be able to teach it. And it's just, when you have staff members that are that vested personally
Mhm.
in their future and the kids' future, because they know that when they better themselves, they're able to offer children more. And we have a district full of teachers that feel that way about the kids. What else can I do to make things better for them? And they're jumping at it because this kind of a partnership saves families thousands of dollars
Yeah,
over time.
It can cost less, in my experience, to take college credit now for $30 than it does to do AP. And you get a college transcript. You get a transcript that the student takes with them.
Right.
And that is, that's solid college credit, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to,
And
I
so-
worked 10 minutes in Tristan, finished his first year of college in high school,
Mhm.
and it was crucial. Yeah, I really appreciated it. And he went on to get his master's.
And one course or a series of courses that I would recommend every student to get started on because it helps them in everything they do if they can take the writing sequence. In the high school, I had all three of my kids finish that before they went to high school. So when they took the history class, they could write an essay
what do you mean before they went to college?
before they went to college. Yes, right.
It's a little bit more
Thank you.
like
That's why Jessica's with
And
me.
I asked, I don't know if you know Dr. Rose, I'll go right behind you, he'd like to add, he's our chief of staff.
Oh, wonderful.
And this was, I would just say that this, we worked really hard together with Jamaica last year to establish the sponsorship program. And it is really important because one of the conversations we were having is how challenging it is for some of the smaller or more remote school districts to actually hire staff. So if the staff retires or leaves, sometimes you're just sitting there and not able to offer the course.
Yeah.
And so this is one way that some of us, who are more challenged to hire staff, to be able to, and actually the staff member gets the best training, as far as I'm concerned, to be mentored, while you're actually teaching the
Yeah.
course by someone experienced at teaching the course is the best model possible. So we appreciate that.
Well, and our accrediting agency will not let us allow someone to teach a course if they don't have our minimum qualifications. So if you don't happen to have an instructor who has a Master of Arts in Teaching, that's not what our requirements are. Ours are graduate levels in courses in the discipline. You need at least 30 graduate hours in the discipline in order to teach, right? Rightly, wrongly, that's the requirement. And so if you don't have that person, because you just didn't happen to, that person didn't need those courses when they were getting hired, et cetera, sponsored dual credit model is the answer, because then our person and this person are working together to create an experience that passes muster and that is, and it also helps to create a stronger relationship between our institutions, which is always good.
so I just have one more question, I think. The demographics that you put on your one-page handout, are we able to get, how do we track demographics specific for North Marion students? To see who's accessing these classes and who's not able to access them? Where is that?
That's very easy.
So I will say, right now, It lives in the Perkins, the data for the Perkins CTE grants in that area. And we've used that, reviewed that this year in the development of this integrated plan. So one of our long-run student growth targets is about increasing access to those courses for students who currently aren't.
So where would I see that? Like, where does it come to us? I'm not sure where
I don't think I've ever seen it.
I think the high school
I,
reports,
you know, when we talk about access to rigorous courses.
yeah, we can.
Yeah,
This would
I
be
mean,
one
and
of
that's
those.
actually going to be a regular measure. right
Yeah.
now. Yeah. It lived in there was a document was produced it was used for the high school success grant and also used for the Perkins reports, which is the CTE program reports is where we found it this year. So we will be maintaining that because that's an important goal.
I was trying to remember where I saw it. It was in the SSA grant application that we all saw. So it was buried in there, but yeah, you could.
Are you talking about like data points that we haven't had access to for a while?
Well, I just mean, you know, if we're looking at like, students in tag or students in
Yeah.
college classes or students in by activity or, you know, that kind of stuff that we
Right.
see in other spots. I don't remember specifically seeing this program, you know, like if it's one of our more rigorous.
Some of our data comes from Temecula. I mean, that's, because
Sure.
these things get collected in different places and some of our CTE come from the consortia that we're part of because they're collecting that. So that's oftentimes where it goes and we get it back from the institutions or agencies.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible I missed it, like, that's totally possible, but I just,
The last couple of years, I've had a couple of snafus that have prevented normal things from happening.
mhm,
Maybe
I don't know what
try
you're
to-
talking about. Anyways, thank you, I do appreciate, your patience with my questions.
Absolutely. They're good questions.
Good question.
Did you have one, Richard, or?
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for sharing the information with us tonight and for your partnership. And I might mention that as a former member of the Temecula Foundation Board, I had a chance to see firsthand, the impact that you all are having on the students and on our community. And I believe that a lot of these programs wouldn't happen without Jessica's leadership and guidance and vision and tenacity. So, and the support of the Board of Education. So thank you both for all the work you do.
Very kind. Thanks. Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, this was fun.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And let us know if there's something we can do for you.
Yeah,
If
we
you
can
see a
bring more
program that's
brochures
not on the
perhaps.
list, yes, we can bring more brochures. We will manufacture more brochures if you tell us what you want.
Not meant to be threatening, but you'll be here.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again. Appreciate it.
All right, next up, we have Yadira Kenley with an ASB report.
Well, good evening, everyone. Good to be back today in March. Right, there are some updates from different clubs from February and then going on into March and April. So last week, ASB was able to show appreciation to our awesome classified staff here at the high school and throughout the school district as well. And that classified staff includes our custodians, kitchen staff, instructional assistants, and then anyone else who's under that classified organization. So on Wednesday, we had a breakfast cart where we served pastries, food, and other snacks, courtesy of the White Rabbit Bakery and Panera Bread in Woodburn. And then on Thursday, we passed out gift cards to all of our classified staff from the bistro in Hubbard. And then on Friday, we were able to provide coffee from Coda Coffee in Hubbard and donuts from Woodland Safeway for our classified staff as well, just show our recognition for all of their hard work that they've been doing, this past school year and continue to do for our district. And then as for ASB, we are currently planning an assembly next week to celebrate all of our students of the term and the students with perfect attendance. And we are also hoping to get ready our applications for next year's ASB members so that they can apply.
For Key Club, they recently hosted an event for Read Across America on March 2nd with the primary school to encourage reading in those younger Huskies. The high schoolers dressed up in like fun costumes, kind of like based off of the book they were reading. And read to every class in the primary school, along with passing out some bookmarks for them to color, and some fun stickers and pencils. So that was a really cool experience. And then coming up, members will be helping out with the concession stand on Monday, March 20th for the softball game. So if you'd like to support a Key Club, you can stop on by to purchase some food for the game. And they have the opportunity to help at the Woodburn the Wooden Shoe Tulip Festival in Woodburn with like coordinating parking there on April 1st and 2nd with Woodburn Kiwanis. And finally, they will be hosting elections soon for next year's officer positions and other community service opportunities are to come.
And then as for the Future Business Leaders of America, they attended their sports business night, the first of this month on the first Wednesday, March 1st at the Moda Center. And they were able to talk with some staff members from the Moda Center that work with the Trailblazers. So they were able to hear about different career opportunities that the Moda Center offers as well. And then we ended our night with watching a Blazers game. They will soon be sending 15 members to the state conference, which will be happening on Thursday, April 6th through Saturday, April 8th. Members are competing in various activities such as a job interview, public service announcement, business management, healthcare administration, and other events. And then they will also have a field trip in April to learn more about the School of Business in Linfield.
For FFA, Future Farmers of America, the greenhouse is up and in full production, and students are busy getting ready for their plant sale that is to come in May. They're hoping to see everyone there to come and support their awesome members. And there are also 13 students heading to Redmond at the end of this week on Thursday and Friday, I believe, for the 95th Oregon State FFA Convention. They'll be attending leadership workshops, a huge career fair, attending general sessions, listening to amazing keynote speakers, along with the most important work supporting their state public speaking as one of the top 6 in the state, watching 2 members walk across the stage, earning their state FFA degree. It's very exciting, and finding out the results of their 2 proficiency candidates. So make sure to wish them luck.
And then as for drama, they just finished their production for the murder mystery at the Murder House, which was a success and a very well attended event. Coming up in April, they are hoping to attend the Oregon West Drama Showcase, which is hosted at Staten, so they're hoping to attend. And then this week, they are starting to work on an improv dessert type of theater to showcase and perform in May, which will include student written skits, as well as a lip sync contest and some improv games as well.
But awesome, they're working on the idea of an art show with contributions welcome from students and staff about mental health, and they're hoping to have this take place in April.
And then as for the National Art Honor Society, they delivered some kindness stickers throughout Kindness Week last week to our students and staff. These stickers included like a floral butterfly, a state of Oregon outline with the front of our high school displayed on it, as well as a star galaxy shown in a husky figure. And then they are also looking for students to submit artwork to be displayed at the White Rabbit Bakery between the end of March till June. So students who are interested in submitting their artwork, they need to see Miss Bailey by the end of this week in room D3.
For a prom committee, the junior class has ordered their decoration and is working to find chaperones for the Old Hollywood style prom that is happening on Saturday, April 22nd at Oakview Acres, located just outside of Canby. And they're going to work to start to sell tickets during the first week of April.
And then as for the yearbook club, they are currently finalizing pages of our fall and winter spreads. So if any of you guys want to look at those spreads, to give us feedback on them, we are more than happy to send that to you guys.
For Skills USA, the weekly prep meetings are underway for students needing practice or to help create their project for Skills USA State, which will be taking place on April 7th and 8th. And they have students preparing with different staff members on their specialty. And in recent years, North Marion has sent about 1 or 2 students to nationals, and they have high hopes of doing so again in Atlanta, Georgia, the week of June 19th through the 23rd.
And then as for our National Honor Society Club, last week we were able to introduce 30 new members into the chapter with a quick little celebration and cake as well. They will now work to prepare for their spring blood drive, which will be taking place on Tuesday, May 16th. And this blood drive is open for students who are over 16, staff members, and community members as well.
You have any questions?
Yes.
I don't have a question, but I want to give a huge shout out to the two and their team. If you don't know, the Old Aurora Colony Museum in Aurora is new leadership, and they hired a marketing firm out of Denver to hold focus group meetings to determine their future projections and goals and things. And I went to one and realized that this group's average age needed to be reduced quite a bit. So I asked for their help, and they put together 10 high school students, and the woman flew out from Denver and met and had a focus group with our high school kids on the importance of museums and how they should work and what their point of view was from their things. Most interesting comment was TikTok videos had to be held to less than 5 seconds. But they also got to talk with the woman who does this professionally, and got to meet her. She was from Hawaii and actually lived in the Clackamas area for a while, and then worked out of Denver. So I really want to thank you for putting that group together. They were really appreciative of hearing a much different viewpoint on the importance of museums in our community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you.
There has been other change.
Oh, okay.
Representative Lewis would like to meet with you at 1 o'clock on April 5th.
Okay.
And then after that meeting, we'll either be joining governor signing something, or we'll be meeting the governor.
Okay.
And I would like you to attend as well. And if you want to put together a deal, she asked, what would they really want to talk to me about? And I said, I'm not going to answer that question for them. I'm going to ask them, what do you want to talk to the governor about? Who do you want to bring to talk to the governor? She's going to listen to you on April 5th.
Okay.
So thank you for being you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Well, give me more information.
Okay, sounds
That's a
good.
big
Thank you.
opportunity.
Yeah.
It does.
Thanks, you guys. All right. Moving on to 60, I'm not gonna go through a lot of this, but you had a couple words, or you had a little bit to say about
I just
legislative session.
a couple things. We're coming up on some important dates of the legislative session. As you know, I'm on the OSBA board, so this Friday is at 5 o'clock is bill cutoff. If your bill has not been scheduled for a work session, it will be dropped. The cutoff for completing the work session and having a vote is April 4th-ish. So there's just over 3,000 bills in the legislature right now, so probably 2/3 of them will fall away here in the next week. Some bills of significance are HB 3198, also HB 3546, which are dealing with early literacy. The governor has a huge focus on 3rd grade reading and preschool learning. These are allocating funds in for that, which we are part of the preschool program. As you all know, we have a preschool program here. HB 3552 is a board member protection bill, but it actually goes for all elections to prevent personal information from being posted on the website when you file to be a candidate on an election. The biggest one is Senate Bill 819, abbreviated day schedule. This is going to dramatically change how we do children with disabilities. It's a good problem, but it's a bad solution. So we're working on trying to improve that bill. Working on with Rep. Chavez Dreamer's team on the Student Bill of Rights Act, which is at the federal Congress level. Just sent that email off. I'll be going to Orlando on the 30th of this month for the National Education Conference. It's in Orlando this year. I'll be there and I'll give you a report next month's thing on what we did, what we learned there. Any questions? OSBA? Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. I have a notice that I will read off its announcement for notice of instructional material review for English language proficiency curriculum adoption, March 13th, 2023, in keeping with school board policy II/IIA -AR. This notice serves to inform the North Marion community of the review of English language proficiency instructional materials. The North Marion review process will continue through spring of 2023. At which time a K-12 committee will make a recommendation to the school board for approval. The materials will be implemented in the 2023-24 school year. For more information, you can reach out to Irma Patton, Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Title Programs. And next up, we are acknowledging.
Wait, have we seen that curriculum come through?
Let's just notice
It's
that.
It's ongoing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's-
Does that have to do with our ELA curriculum we did last year?
No.
This is a curriculum for English language development, for an English language development program for English learners.
Good question.
Yeah.
And they've just started the process.
Okay, so where can we look at that information?
Well, they've just started to putting the committee together, to start the process. This is just a notice that they're starting the process.
Oh,
Committee is formed.
Yeah.
All right, I'll follow up on that.
Anyway, acknowledge an overnight field trip for the FBLA State Leadership Conference to Portland, April 6th through the 8th, 2023. I'll be there and you'll be there.
I will be there.
All right, item number 7, consent agenda. If you've had a chance to look at this, or I heard earlier comments about this, so
That was for something.
That was for the board action.
board action. Okay, so I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Item number 8, business and budget appropriations. Linda, I see your smiling face already, so.
I am here. Yes, I just wanted to update you. We did get an update to our 22-23 state school fund on February 17th, but they came right out about a week later and said, we think there's a mistake with it. And I haven't seen the latest one. I'm hoping that what they told us on the 17th is close to right, because it was good news for North Marion. One of the things I can point out is that our teacher ratio went from a negative 0.37 to a positive, a negative 0.3 to a positive 0.37. So that plays into the funding ratio and how much we get per ADMW for our state school fund. So it'll help us get a little more money for this year and next year. I'm looking forward to getting all of the updates for the final will come in May for 21-22, and then an update for 22-23. And hopefully we've only received the first update for 23-24 based on the governor's $9.9 billion recommendation for state school fund. So we're hoping through the legislation, we'll get a little more than that, and the North Marion's number will be a little bit better. So we'll hold tight and hope for good news all the way around on those. Any questions for me?
I think the co-chair's budget comes out next week, right?
I believe so, Bill. Mhm.
Sandy, thank you, Linda, though, much appreciated.
Yep, no problem.
All right, moving along to number 9, board action. First item on that list is approval of OSAA cooperative application between North Marion and Jervis.
Yeah, I had,
I have.
You got okay. Do you want to read the question and then
I'll be careful. Yeah.
Yeah. minus one week?
Yeah, how does a co-op form? A co-op, athletic co-ops form regularly whenever there's a significant shortage of athletes on one side, and perhaps even it's a win-win, there's a shortage of other athletes on the other side, and they're like, well, you know, we do the co-op thing. It's a very easy process. We co-opt with Mount Angel, we co-opt with Woodburn, we co-op, you know, it's just a way to make sure that students who want to be able to access an opportunity to play have the opportunity to do that and are not denied that opportunity because their school doesn't have enough players. So it's normal, happens all the time. You'll see it on the OSAA website. You'll see two school names together. That means they have a co-op, and that's its purpose, is to provide opportunities. So what about the Jervis athletes that are looking to play? Currently, at this time, Jervis has no baseball program whatsoever, no coaches, no players. There are currently a couple of JV players that really, really want to play and want to play on our JV team. It also turns out that our JV team is short, and we were going to have to maybe cut the JV team because we did not have players. So in this particular instance, it's a win-win for both schools. So now our JV players can play and their JV players. They don't have any varsity players. There isn't a varsity, there's no team, which is very sad to me. We have a very strong working relationship with Jervis. This is information from Mark as well. It's strong and allows both schools to work together to make it happen. Everyone's agreed to do this for their kids. There's no coaching coming over. The coaches that we have now in our baseball program are Randy and Tucker. Anyone else is a volunteer, so we only have 2 coaches on staff for baseball. And then we have JV coaches, but I mean at the varsity level. Also have JV coaches. So that Wade used to do it. Can't remember the JV coaches. I'll have to look up their staff. Matt Crom is one of them. I can't remember who. Okay. Let's see. Again, like I said, JV players, our baseball team is way down in numbers, so we can have a full roster. And injuries and academic eligibility have also affected our program as well. There's no varsity impact, and students coming over and co-ops are only a 1 year. So if it's a university player next year, there's no co-op. And so they would remain with their school program or perhaps have to form another co-op, but it has no impact on the varsity program. It's, you know, there's no sharing the fields. It's our kids playing ball, and there's a couple of Jervis kids coming over to play. There's no impact anywhere else.
Is there any financial impact?
No.
So the children from Jervis are finding their own right here.
What about liability?
None. They carry their own liability insurance. And the superintendent has said that, you know, they don't have a big program, so if we ask them to kick in money for the kids, the school district would be happy to do that. I don't know that that's necessary.
Yeah, like for uniform.
Yeah, they would probably. Yeah, and so that's the story of this particular. And in the winter, we had Woodburn swimmers. Because they didn't have a swim.
Did we have a co-op on that?
I didn't see that come across.
They didn't require it.
Who's they?
OSA.
OSA.
Yeah, there's now a form that has to be filled out. I have to sign it, and then I have to put on the bottom of the form now when the board approves it.
Why the new rules? What forced that? You know,
Just liability. I think when people look at bylaws and policy, OSAA is really sharpened their focus in supporting school students and sportsmanship and you know, athletes. And they saw a few gaps. So we wanted to close those gaps and make sure that everyone had all the information in advance. And it's very visible, transparent.
and so our eligibility requirements uniform across schools, are they OSAA dictated for
OSAA.
grades and that kind of stuff?
Yep.
So Jervis would be maintaining eligibility tracking on this.
And our coaches would be ensuring that they have that information. We have to attend school and practice. You know, attend, you don't play, you don't practice.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion, we accept or approve the OSAA co-op application between North Marion and Jervis for baseball in the year 2023 spring season.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
No,
motion carries. Next item up is 9B. The litigation that we had chatted about earlier in executive sessions.
the JUL. School is fine. I make a motion that we accept the litigation from Jewel as presented,
The proposed settlement.
the proposed settlement, thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Just, I guess, a question or suggestion, if we could, schedule some time for us to meet as a board to talk about how we're gonna use the, whatever funds we may receive as part of the settlement.
We'll come up with some recommendations for you.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to detail some needs when we got.
So
Any
just,
other discussion?
yeah, just for clarification, the action was the motion and the action that was recommended to us slightly different in verbiage.
Yeah.
And so,
Where is it?
We're authorizing Ginger, we should be
Oh,
authorizing
right.
Ginger
So-
to.
So I'll reword the motion to approve superintendent, or pardon me, I think it is. Okay. I'm often. Approve, Ginger to, where do you guys see that?
This.
Under 6.
No, that's superintendent evaluation.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's,
No.
yeah, it's.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, it's at the bottom of the sheet. I was just looking at that.
Thank you. I don't have
That's
this.
all you look at.
Where? Well, I can remove my hands and you can read. Where?
this action.
Oh, thank you.
The board authorized.
Action, under where it says. action.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I make a motion that we have the action to authorize superintendent to resolve the lawsuit with Jewel Labs Incorporated.
Okay, we already have a motion on the table, so are you amending
Yeah,
your motion?
yes, I'm amending it, so it's
I'll
correct.
second, I'll second. I'll second the.
Sorry, Diane, for all your typing,
Okay, so is
because on
there,
here it says different than here.
is there further discussion on the emotion that's
Oh,
been amended and is on the table?
can I add that we also will have communication regarding the budgeting? Mhm. I will add that too.
I consider that a request, not a
Okay,
motion of
well,
what you're supposed to do.
That's LinkedIn, so we can vote on it or not.
I'm unclear as to where we are on this motion.
So I would like to restatement of the motion.
Okay.
Because we've had 3 now.
I will restate the whole thing. Sorry, I'm indecisive. So I make a motion that we authorize the superintendent to resolve the lawsuit with Jewel Labs Incorporated, including to provide us with the recommended budget. Good?
Still need a second. If that's a restatement. And for lack of a second, that motion dies.
Okay,
So,
that's fine.
does somebody else want to take it out?
Okay, I will move that we authorize the superintendent to resolve lawsuit with Jewel Labs Incorporated.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Still want a budget there.
Hearing. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion before us, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That one carries. Thank you. All right, integrated plan or integrated action plan, public review and board approval, which is coming with a presentation. So you guys come up here and join us. That'd be great.
We can do that.
Trying to help. Yeah.
So, yeah, I've got a couple of things. This is just for those that, you know, it's a little helpful to have a document in front. Well, thank you. And we're excited to have a chance to be here to provide our latest iteration of our completed application for the integrated planning guide. And again, ask for your approval. We're really asking for your approval so that we can just submit it to the Department of Education so they can approve it. And then ultimately they have some work to do with us about fine tuning some of those things. So let's see. If you could go ahead and go to the PowerPoint. There we go. Thanks a lot, Linda.
Yep.
Last month, we gave a pretty detailed outline of where we were because we were getting pretty close to finishing up the plan. And I just want to make sure we had a chance to reiterate some of those pieces. Tonight, we want to share this iteration of the plan. We really want to share that what we've really has really helped us in kind of thinking about how all of these different plans that we're integrating together actually support our strategic plan. And so we spent a lot of time talking about the integrated plan in the last few weeks, but it is the strategic plan that really is driving the district. And this has helped us to make sure that we align, what could have been disparate plans to our strategic plan. So despite the challenges, we've appreciated the opportunity to do that and think about that. So tonight we, along with sharing, hopefully you'll see the strong connections to our strategic plan and how the resources available in these plans help to resource the strategic plan. Provide an opportunity for the community to give some feedback if they wish, and again, to ask for approval. I do want to share one thing because we got some information like this morning. This is the first time the state has done this, so they're kind of learning a few things as they go. Ultimately, there is, you may have seen in your packet, some draft longitudinal performance growth targets, and we'll come to those a little bit later. I do want to note right up front that we're asking it that, and we're being asked not to have boards approve those. Because that is the thing that the Department of Education will ultimately negotiate with us. So these are very drafty. They don't want them approved at this point as draft, because otherwise we would just have to approve them again after the Department of Ed gets done working with them. So the 6 programs: high school success, the student investment account, our continuous improvement plans, CTE, the Perkins grants, the everyday matters around attendance, and early indicator and intervention systems, are the 6 grant programs or improvement programs that we've been required to do. They've all had their separate plans, separate accountability systems, and now we're really working towards integrating those into one plan where we can see the investments of all of those together in one plan. And then also, again, thinking about how that really helps us to support the strategic plan. The resources in these combined grants together are a fairly small part. I don't know, Linda, if you have off the top of your head what percentage of our total budget, might be here, but it's not the.
Oh, I would say it's less than 10%. It's probably more
Right.
like 7, maybe.
Exactly. I think then that's always good to know. There's a lot of effort and a lot of work, but that strategic plan and our general fund and some of our federal funds are really, the resources that we use to enact the entire plan. So important that we're strategic with these resources and the plans as well. So we shared last week what was required in the planning process. We're happy to report that we have fulfilled those requirements and those obligations. We'll be needing to make assurances to the state around that. We have included and in the PowerPoint are links to the equity frameworks that we've been using. The Department of Ed's equity framework, and the Ready for Rigor framework that helps us to define culturally responsive practices and culturally responsive teaching. We mentioned a couple of other things as well. It's just that process of strategic planning for us. We were really asked and compelled to have an equity lens on that work as we started. And those planning team members, again, and as we continue to move forward and continue to monitor and adjust, we'll continue to grow the folks that are parts of our planning teams. We highlighted some of the community engagement activities that we were in. In the integrated plan, that you will get, and in that executive summary were some links. And there are links to some of the, we're asked to upload some links to some of the key community engagement activities that we participated in thinking about the plan. So those are there as well, along with the equity lenses. We identified, through this process, and again, there were a lot of work that went into each one of these plans in terms of thinking about priorities, the initial student investment account, as well as the strategic plan last spring. So these are the highlights of the needs assessments that arose from that work. I know these are pieces that were in the presentation last week. We looked at the emerging priorities and actually really started to think about how we might build theories of action around those emerging priorities. And then on the next page, we actually start to get into kind of where the plan is as we'll submit to the Department of Education on this. So these are 6, we had drafted outcomes, but these are the 6 key outcomes that we've identified that we build strategies and investments around in the integrated plan. And you have in front of you, and Linda, maybe if you could open that link. Thanks. You have in front of you, and you've had access to this. This will be, this will be the plan as we want to post it. We think we've tried to put this in an accessible format, so it's really kind of easy to see. It's a general summary, and then if you go ahead and roll up to, say, outcome A, you'll see the links that are there as we start to get there.
Sorry, Bill, I forgot how.
That's okay. I know. That's what we've been. That's it. Those
How
are the
far
links.
is it? There we go.
Right there, there you go. And all of these pieces were our requirements. We really have been working on trying to synthesize these pieces. These are required in the plan. So the outcomes and strategies and investment activities are organized by those 6 activities. We won't go into every single one and go through those things, but a couple of things to note. There are 5 strategies under each outcome. As Linda will share in a little bit, she has to be really, I shouldn't say we, I'm not going to ever take credit for what the magic Linda does, with organizing the budget aspects of this. But for each investment, we have to identify the outcome and strategy number that it supports. So there's a Rubik's Cube of that goes on behind the scenes. There is overlap. You'll see some overlap in strategies and investment activities. And that's intentional and important because really there are nuances within each of those outcomes. But it gives us a flexibility because we're using funds from different grants. They all have different allowable uses. It gives us the flexibility for Linda to do the best budgeting and the most efficient and productive budgeting, with those resources. So again, thank you, Linda. Just wanted to make sure, and I know Heidi didn't have the hard copy, but you have that copy of that piece that we're looking at.
The budget piece?
Well, right now it's just the plan with the outcomes and the strategies. For this purpose, the investment activities are the very specific pieces that are connected to the budget. So if you look, I'm going to stop there. If you look at any investment activities, you would likely be able to find in the line item budget, something that's connected to one of these.
And some of these have already been done, correct?
Yes, yeah, and that's important. Some of them were invested in, but not as a one-year thing. That
Right.
was something that we need to continue moving, and so we tried to be really careful about not pulling the rug out from any of the things that we had moving forward at that point. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Thank you, Linda. Nice navigating.
Trying.
Yeah, we, for this presentation's purposes, we kind of re-outlined some of those key strategies. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. But as you could see, I wanted you to make sure that they weren't all of the strategies. We had 5 strategies under each outcome. And I think there might be a second page of key strategies. We wanted to make sure that this presentation represented, those priorities and such. And this slide is again an important one. So those things on this slide you probably recognize as things that you have supported investment in before, and many of those things are things we'll continue to invest in going forward. A part of the requirement here was to develop a 2-year budget. So Linda has helped kind of do that thinking out for 2 years. The plan is supposed to be a 4-year plan. So really you're thinking about these strategies and outcomes over 4 years, but not trying to get ahead of any biennium, in terms of the budget. Did you, I thought you
I
had-
just chuckled.
I thought you had some-
No, just truth.
And
I will
so-
say this, actually,
Yeah,
I'll interrupt and say, I think especially when we're thinking about how those things overlap, one of the things we're talking about as a cabinet and with our principals is the systems that have to be connected to them, right? So what are the things that create links and then build the support? So you asked the question, Christy, about is this data we've seen before? So those data systems where we can start coming on a regular basis with here's our goal, here's where we're at, here's where we have to grow, what are we doing, what are the systems we're building to increase those numbers, how are we removing barriers to access, et cetera. Those are all really integrated within the plan. We have to do that to be able to make this plan work. So thinking through what are our data systems, what are the pieces of data we're going to draw on, when are we going to draw on those to be able to then come to you and regularly report on how's it going and what are we doing to continue to close our gaps. I will just chime in on that and say that the data targets that I've had since I started on the board till now are constantly moving. So you never get a full, complete point to understand where the growth has been and where it hasn't. And I'm seeing it again right now.
It has been the kind of the bane of our existence, and in teaching and learning in central office for the past 10 or 12 years, because we have just lost. The assessments have either changed every year or they
Yes.
stopped, or something else. So getting that, you're exactly right, getting a longitudinal picture has been really challenging. So we're hoping, and I think it's a vision for the department, is that this is a time when we're going to start to move back to being able to think about things that way. Again, I don't know if you had any questions or comments about these key investments or anything that are here. These are some of those things that continue to cost more each year. And Linda was noticing that the roll-ups for some of these investment activities that we've had in the past may not be accounted for in the allocations coming forward in the budget in those grants. And I don't know, did you want to use this time to say something about that, Linda?
Yeah, I'll just jump over to the budgeting worksheet and kind of give you guys an idea of what it looks like. But to Bill's point, we were able to fund more teachers last year with this grant than we can with the upcoming 23-24, just because the funding level didn't rise as much as our salaries and benefits rose. So it's a challenge. You want to do everything that's on this list, but you have to see where your budget's going to land or fall. So what the state had us do is list our outcomes and strategies for all of those 5 things or 6 outcomes that Bill mentioned. And then we go and we budget by year. And you have to budget by what classification of money it's going to come out of, what code it goes to, the object code. It's a tedious piece of work. And then what fund it's coming out of. And when you get all said and done, you balance to what they told us we can have. And you do that for both years, 23, 24 and 24, 25. And then they want you to add additional or tiered planning in case, for a couple of reasons, in case you get more money and you can do more, or in case you can't hire something you said you were going to do in one of the other years and you can punt and go to the next thing. But we have over $1 million worth of wants or tiered plannings, like kind of like our wish list. So we know that we probably will never get that kind of money with these grants to get that done. But at least they're there in case we do get more funding and we can do more with it.
And each of those tiered planning pieces are also connected to a strategy and an outcome in the plan.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's an important piece of this. So as you approve that, it means that if we need to change something, that has already been approved, or those pieces have already been approved at that point.
So I have a statement and then maybe a question that there are a lot of hire new, that's like a lot.
Yeah, and some of them are already hired. Some of them are already hired. So that gives us permission when we initially, like in the high school success or in the, which hired some CTE teachers and those, it's,
Right.
it's that language. They aren't beyond what we have right now when it says hire new.
Okay. So I guess then, why does it make the list of still hire new? You know what I mean? If it's something we've already done, why is it hire new as opposed to develop or whatever, if you have someone new in that position and they just need to develop. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it helps to align it with the language of any one of those given SIA or HSS or those types of things. Those were longer range hires. And at that time, we're kind of honoring that language from those initial grants as they were written. I totally get what you're saying.
Well, because then, is it in a year from now, oh, we just took care of 2/3 of our list because we did it.
Well, there's Christy, there's some truth to, we did when we planned those things, initially, we really did a lot of this. That's what we're doing, is we're putting those plans together right now.
Yeah, so it's taking like all of the other 6 individual
Right.
ones and merging. And that's how I read it, why there was new, because a lot of the stuff has already been done, but they just have to redocument it for the summary of grants instead of individual ones.
And there is, you remember those,
But I don't want to be tied to hiring.
yeah, where you documented those, where you looked at those different grants, and remember they had that section called allowable uses. So sometimes the notion of a new hire is more allowable than supplanting an old hire.
Right.
So some of it just helps with the allowable use of the grants and the language embedded in those when they first were created. It's a real, because it's this dynamic time right now, because we're still finishing those initial SIA and HSS and Perkins pieces as we're moving into the next iteration. Those are good questions. Okay, you will, we'll update the active link to that budget worksheet, as we get done here. But we have to be careful, right, Linda?
Yeah, I don't want anybody having any access to this link until it's approved. Because it took me a long time.
It is quite a maze of work. And Linda is a genius at it. And so really appreciate her thoughtfulness and because she lives in that work every day, she knows how those pieces fit together. So really appreciate your experience and wisdom in this.
Thank you.
I think the state does too. We think they're getting a lot of questions right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so I would just kind of remind, that's the grant application that we're asking you to approve. Beyond that, I still had I was gonna go ahead and mention.
I'm sorry. See if I can get back to anything. I just closed it all, though.
It's okay, easy to get to.
Which one did you want to go to? The
I wanted to go to that longitudinal performance growth target.
The slide deck.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, I thought you weren't going to show that because they weren't approving it.
Yeah, they promised me they wouldn't approve it, so I show it to them.
Is this what you want, or do you want the PowerPoint piece?
Let's go to the PowerPoint piece. Okay, and just a reminder, we had been asked to draft, for the purpose of this presentation, longitudinal performance growth targets. And so we've been through some sessions to really kind of think about where we would be. We have to set 3 targets for each of the outcomes, and we have to set, or for each of the performance measures, a stretch target and an aspirational. Just a baseline target, probably what we would think is the most realistic and attainable goal, and then a gap closing for all students, and then a gap closing target for what we refer to as our focal students in terms of meeting those measures. Our focal student group is our Hispanic Latinx group of students, fairly large group of students. So, by maintaining that focus, we really do have a chance to move the dial for all students. Anything on that? Mm-hmm.
Well, as we look at our focal students too, it becomes an all-encompassing group of students. We want to make sure that who maybe been historically underserved. So it also hits a lot of our English language learners and our students of poverty as well. So it becomes kind of an all-encompassing goal in that way.
And really, appreciate your question earlier, Christy, because that's really these growth targets are designed to help us pay attention to who's accessing, who's having opportunities, who's there and who's not represented, and to make sure that our strategies support moving these targets along. And we have the 5 common metrics are required: 3rd grade reading, 9th grade on track, attendance, on-time graduation, and completed rates for 5 years. And then we chose 2 because we really felt like there had, that the board and others that really wanted a math, for us to be paying attention to mathematics. So we added an 8th grade mathematics target. And then this notion of focal group enrollment and in a relevant challenging CTE and advanced courses. And so CTE, we're able to track pretty well, and we chose the College Credit Now courses as the courses that we would target for access to advanced courses. So you can see that, you've got the sheet. I'm not going to go through the measures or anything like that, but you can kind of see how we map that out. But,
Sorry, I have questions.
No, it's good.
Surprising.
That's why we're here.
So is there an 8th grade standardized test for mathematics?
It'll be the state test.
It will be.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Did you see anything to say about that?
No, not that.
Okay. I heard that. So, and then the enrollment targets that you said there, what about tag? Where's tag? Is there, did we keep track? That's not on here.
Not in terms of like the long-term goals. I will say when we present the tag plan, which is due May 1st, so I'm hoping to have something to present to you guys here at the April board meeting. We'll be setting separate goals. They're just not part of this plan because we don't have specific things within this plan that are specifically targeting tag funding.
Okay.
But we have, within the tag plan, we have two sets of goals. One is about increasing our identification and looking at specific ways to broaden our reach of like how we're looking for our talented and gifted students, as well as reshaping our program for access points and like how are we delivering services. Some of that might also be impacted by some bills that are potentially up in the legislature right now around tag funding. Tag is truly in Oregon an unfunded mandate. It is something you have to do, but no funding is specifically given at the state level. So it's just how we use our general funds.
It is one of those things, so, you know, that, yeah, one of the things is around access. And most of our assessments, you know, for qualifying for talent and gifted services, you don't necessarily support a large part of our population well. So part of what I know Des is working on is kind of thinking about what are some of those alternative measures that we can use to help provide more access to those services to a wider range of students in the district.
And what do those services look like?
This is kind of the pit I fell into last month's presentation, where there's metrics you give to the state for the application, and there's metrics that we use.
Right.
in-house.
Right.
Right, so those metrics are in-house metrics, but we don't put it on the state application.
Right.
That's the pit I fell into last month.
And I think as we, just using tag as an example, I think anytime we're looking, and this is kind of what I mean by systems, anytime we're looking at a system like that, it's going to be important for us to set goals and think about like, what are we doing to identify what those goals are, and then report to you as a board about how are we meeting those goals and what are we doing if we're not meeting them, to like identify why and then keep like looking to close our own gaps. And so I think in this larger portion, like what we report to the state is one thing, but how we disaggregate data to specifically talk to you all about like how are our different demographic groups, including tag, doing? Are we seeing that they are hitting a stretch goal but not hitting a gap goal, et cetera? Those are things that we can do. And I will use as an example, especially with tag, because there is a lot of research that says actually our tag students are the ones who start to tank on our OSAT tests the hardest, because they kind of hit a plateau and then they get a little bored and then they end up not doing as well. And our state test scores actually don't reflect some of the brilliance that they have. And so really thinking about how is the program addressing that, and how are we noticing that slip in scores, and what are we going to do about it? And so those are all things that as we think through a system, we can think about how does this become one of those like ongoing measure points that we are not only using for ourselves, but we're using to be accountable to you guys as a board. So when I bring the tag plan to you all, those can be part of that discussion about where would you all like to see the tag program go, and where should we set goals, and how can we be ambitious with those goals. The state would love us to identify 7 to 10% of all students across demographic groups, including our SPED students, who are often twice gifted but not noticed. And so that is a really cool goal to have, is to get to that 10%. Because that is a statistical average that most schools should see. And the state is giving us a lot of flexibility with our plans to get there. So I think that's where we see the integration, including how we take these goals and identify those different subgroups of how are we serving those individual groups and meeting the goals.
Yeah. And I get your point, Bill. But, and this is just, wouldn't it be real nice if we could actually measure what we want to see and what we want to have, and it's not these two separate processes of here's the state and here's what. And so my expectation is that we see those numbers and that we continue to report on those and that we continue. And so
Here.
that's my expectation as part of the board. And if that line gets deleted for the state, then so be it. But
And there's some-
I want us to continue having the discussion of these are the things we want and what we expect to see and not.
And I do want to just kind of come back and remember that this is this plan that goes to the state. We have a strategic plan, you know what I mean, that we can
Right.
keep developing those things through, that we can build those measures and indicators into. Trying to make sure we. No,
Well, I guess I am struggling a little bit with these. I mean, it seems like we spent a lot of time here talking about the importance of, for example, third grade reading proficiency or ninth grade on track as predictors of student success,
Mhm.
right? And if we have to pick two local metrics to report to, I'm hard pressed to see how focal group enrollment is more important than ninth grade on track rates, the local metric.
It's real important to Perkins, CTE, and it's important to high school success, so some of these measures are, a result of kind of doing what we promised to do as a result of taking the funds that are in some of these grants. And I think that, maybe let you kind of share a little more what you were thinking about, why you're thinking that might not help us move the.
Well, I just think, I'm interested in holding ourselves accountable for
Mhm,
the results that we're seeing in students.
mhm.
And it seems to me the gaps are significant today, right? And it's real easy to check the box and say, we've got focal group enrollment. It's much harder to say our ninth grade on track rates are where we want them to be, or our third grade
Mhm.
proficiency levels are where we want them to be. So if we're gonna hold ourselves accountable with local metrics, I'd like to see local metrics that move the needle. And you could argue that focal group enrollment in relevant, challenging, and CTE is, sort of
Right.
an element that's important, but I just am not seeing as direct a connection between student success using that metric
Mhm.
as, for example, using third grade reading proficiency as a metric.
Yeah, well, I mean, those first five are required. And we see those as actually kind of basal to getting to the next place. A lot of the narrative that we have to write is that actually, how are we going to build pathways so that, so that our focal group, our Hispanic with Latinx students, about 37% of them are in those college credit now courses, when over 50% of our students are Latinx.
So the common metrics are, we're tracking and reporting, right? So
Yes.
the local metrics are.
On addition.
In addition.
Thank you.
Yes.
I didn't
Yes.
understand that.
Yeah, we're
Sorry,
excellent.
sorry. Yeah, okay.
And I think
Yeah.
what
Mhm.
the
Good
thing,
good clarification.
the thing about those
Mhm.
two also is the interconnectedness of them. Because to the point you're making, which is a spot on, a kid who isn't on track cannot have access to CTE because I'm too busy retaking an
Mhm.
English class or retaking a math class. And now those electives are not available to me. So if we don't improve ninth grade on track, we won't improve our CTE enrollment.
Right.
And then the CTE enrollment actually has a direct connection to the 4-year and 5-year completion rate, because what they've seen statistically is students enrolled in CTE and college credit classes have a higher graduation rate than non-participants. So we actually see kids, because they're now engaged in school, they found something relevant in their coursework, that they're more likely to graduate. But again, and it's all tangential, right? If we can't get their 8th grade math scores up, they struggle in 9th grade math, which means they're probably off track, which means they can't take CTE. It's very causal links, right? We can see how one built on the other. And so in some ways, some of these metrics are the end, kind of autopsy of the data. We can tell where our data slipped and told us, like, actually, we're off track. And where do we have points of intervention where we could kind of course correct if needed. But the interconnectedness of all of those is really entwined. And you're absolutely right about like why that ninth
Mhm.
grade is a requirement, no matter what.
We know that we know that 90% of CTE concentrators graduate, and over 95% of kids who are completers in CTE programs graduate in North Marion. Not just overall, that's our own data. So there, so there's kind of those connections. We know we do the things we need to do. But like you said, it starts in preschool for us in order to get them there.
Well, and I think the reason why we've had so many data discussions is because we haven't been receiving any data. And I think maybe this could be a good topic for our focus work session, because data is really crucial for a lot of us to have clear data that we're receiving on a regular basis that shows moving the needle. That's what I'm always after.
Mhm.
And with the target that's been moving so
Mhm.
frequently,
Yeah.
it would be nice to nail that down and actually have usable data that we can say, we're making impacts here, we're not doing well here, where do we need to go from there, from a board perspective?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of excited about having this, what I mean, this framework right here, because if we can just maintain it over a few years so that it actually is
Yeah.
the same as it was the year before, then it'll start to make sense to us all.
Neglecting the fact that we're gonna have a new OT there.
I said to somebody today, like, that's what I said to Linda.
And we should sit at the pub and I'll tell you how consistent underfunding by the federal government of IDEA. caused that for candidates. Right, and we can get into that kind of detail. Right.
So
Great
do you need
questions.
approval on something like that?
Yeah, and I just wondered if you wanted to ask if there was any public comment, from the audience or anything. Mhm. If anyone had a question or wanted to comment or.
Yeah, does anybody have a
Questions or
comment
comments
or a question about that?
Besides what?
Career and technical.
Alright. Oh, we don't have any more. Do we have any other?
Well,
Had a
we
couple
have
other
some thoughts or questions. There'll be a website just for the integrated plan. And feel free to drop a line or send an email and we will gather your information.
Oh, you had a question, where?
No, I was just making sure we didn't.
Oh, okay.
Am I understanding your table correctly that you're three different, this is really helpful, this is probably practical and, so the practical line is still showing below the state average?
Yeah, we'll probably have conversations about that with the state. Because it does have to be, with that one, we're asked to be realistic. And so we had to kind of go through some thinking about, given kind of where we are right now, what we think we can do.
So I don't remember what year that went through, was it next year or
The,
the table went out to 22, 23? Is that how far the table went out or did it go 22, 24?
we've got
27, 28.
Yeah, 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another 5 years, you're still saying you're gonna be below the state.
Well-
average. So best guess. Will you ever be above it? I mean.
I think those are
Will
things
you ever be above it, I guess?
those are things we'll be negotiating, and there is an expectation, from the state that we, are really kind of thinking about what that trajectory is towards the state average, at least for districts. And, we're starting in a little bit of a gap. And so, we really are trying to think, and we want to close that gap faster. So we want to think stretch, on those activities. We've got a brand new, if you're thinking reading or math, but we've got a lot of work being invested in those programs right now, as we speak.
The other piece that's connected to it is that the state is going to come to us, and it's part of the reason why these are draft, is they'll come to us. And there's going to be some data analysis that they've done around what is the average level of growth that districts are experiencing. So we could easily go and set a goal that's like, by next year, we're going to be even with the state, but it's unlikely we're going to meet it. And what they're going to say to us is like, the average district your size grows about 2 points a year. So that's going to be your kind of baseline. Let's see if we can grow 2 points a year. We want to do more than that for our gap because our gap are starting lower. So our goal is to get these lines to eventually meet. And our stretch is like
but what if we really hit something, we work really hard, or we get the right program, could we launch it even further? And then the hope is that those lines all kind of start to intersect at some point. The piece about it that you're hitting on that is always so hard is when you're going like, don't worry, in 6 years, we're gonna nail this. And it's like, well, what about all the kids in between? And so I think our goal is always to make more exponential growth than what we identify, but the state's gonna say, what's the realistic based on what people have done overall. We know that some of our growth though too, when we look at, there's charts they give us where it's like, this is where you were, then the pandemic hit, and here's where we are now. And now if we were to predict where you're gonna go again, it's down here, because we had this drop during the pandemic. Well, we had a lot of things impacting us during the pandemic, and we've already seen ninth grade success is a good example. Last year's ninth grade success already took a bigger jump, but if they took our average, it would say we're still dropping, but we know that that's probably not gonna be the case. We're gonna see bigger growth than what they would predict for us.
So just one last question. Based off of just your knowledge that you have in your experience, would you say that this district is in line with other districts of its size and population, community, similar?
I would like to add that sometimes you look at the big aggregate, which is like the on-time graduation. And the state report card that I'm looking at right now, which is the most recent one that's published on the website, was from last year. And our on-time graduation rate was 80%, which is low for us. We want it to be much higher.
With high school diplomas or?
Yeah, on time. And the state average is 81. So we're really not that far apart.
I'll be honest with you, what I'm really looking at is a parent with a third grader who's not reading at grade level, who volunteered to do primary school last year with the second graders. That's really where I'm coming from.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question about the same graphs. So we see that it's gone up a little bit, and that was way before the pandemic hit.
So this is not us. This is the state says, here's a little graphic that represents what the graphs are.
So
This is not
us.
anything with us.
This isn't us, this just shows what.
Okay,
Yeah.
but fair enough. So do we have data that is just us, or is that in our annual assessments for each grade?
You absolutely could look at our state report cards for the last few years. And that would give you kind of where our baselines are and where we go. And it will also, you look at those state report cards, it will have a little arrow going up and down, like where's our trend going?
Yeah.
And then once we get our data approved by the state, then this will all go public and it will show what those goals are. But this is just a weird graphic that the state gave us to represent what those goals look like.
Is there any
Well, what the lines could look like.
thought or discussion around seeing when we were on the uptrend for so many years in a row, what specific programs we had in place that seemed to be really successful, but for whatever reason they were replaced? Is there any other time that you could go back to those, or?
A couple things, like on one level, yes, like that's been, for example, the math curriculum adoption that we're doing right now. That's been a big part of the discussion of like looking back at previous curriculums that were used and what was the success rate? What did those programs look like? Some of the programs don't exist anymore. Some of them do, some of them don't, but what they did is replicated in other ones. So I know that's a big concentration for our math team. And I know looking at, I'm kind of coming into it right now this year, but with ELA, that was a big part of the ELA adoption as well. So for example, the Amplify curriculum had a lot of the same components around for like phonics and how it taught reading that looked a lot like SFA when we were seeing some upswings, but also meets the need of a changing community that we have. So we're really excited about a lot of the curriculum we're purchasing. And the question you're really getting at, that thinking process has been a big part of my work with instructional leaders of like, how do we leverage? It's twofold. It's like, how do we remember and leverage things that were successful, but also how do we adapt those to meet the needs of a current community that might not quite look like it did 7-8 years ago?
Yeah,
And one of the things we have to think about, especially with third grade results right now, is that, probably our first and second graders are some of the most impacted through COVID, just in terms of, we talk about longitudinal data, but, just the notion of having a regular school year, for several years in a row makes a big difference. And we know that as we move back and, we have the consistency of the professional development, the consistency of the materials, the new materials we're using that are good, kids in school, for a few years in a row without a break, that then we'll start to see different trajectories.
Those are great questions.
I have two questions. One is just that you need to like negotiate with the state. For what? Or what did you mean by that comment?
We set numbers that are our goals, and the state's gonna look at those and say, we approve your goals, or you need to tweak them, or go up, go down, something. So they will negotiate our final numbers with us for our goals.
Okay. And my second question is, in this equation, our teachers, do you feel like
I think we have the right teachers and the right set of training to give supports to the teachers where they might have gaps. So I think in any system, when it's brand new, you have where their base of knowledge is and where you want to take them. And I think, I know for myself, that's a real focus of mine, is how do we use professional development to really support our staff and build their leadership and the skills that they need. And so that's part of the discussion we're having as cabinet, is like, where do we help teachers identify where they want to learn and grow, and what supports can we put in place for them?
We really feel, that question, do you have your teachers? Well, we really feel like, it's kind of like, do they have the right leaders? to support the teachers, have that accountability to give teachers the support they need to do their jobs well.
And thank you for all these questions. I'm writing them down as public comments. So thank you. That's all.
Good question.
Then we can track and address them. Thank you.
Okay, ready?
All right, are we good?
Well, I had a couple other questions, but it's getting late and maybe my question is, how important is it that we approve this tonight?
Very, very.
Yeah.
It has to be done before we can submit. It has to be submitted by the end of the month, and we won't have another board meeting.
We can postpone other stuff on the agenda. That's some.
I mean, I guess one question I had was just, about the positions that are outlined in here. I think as Christie pointed out, as I go through this document, I'm looking at, just reading through it, outcome A strategies, hire a director of equity and inclusion, investment activities, recruit and hire licensed mental health professionals, provide additional IAs, hire a director of E&I. Outcome B, hire a high school, college, and career coordinator, hire a high school career planning teacher, hire new CTE teachers. So we talked a little bit about the budget implications, $100 million, but I don't understand which of these positions are incremental, new, which ones we already have.
All the ones you just read, we already have, yeah.
So why are we including them?
Richard, if I could point you to the key investments, those are pretty much all that we have spent our money on this year and plan to spend it on for the next year or two. I can't tell you if we spent it on all of those the prior year. I can't quite remember when SIA started, but I believe that those have been ongoing.
Because I really want to understand the budget implications if we're approving, this application. I just am uncomfortable approving it without understanding sort of what the budget implications are.
I think one thing to think about with the budget, and Linda, you can jump in and kind of correct me or give nuances to it, is that a lot of these, remember, we're integrating plans that already existed. And so we're not creating a new budget, but really reshifting the plan around budgets that already existed. So in theory, the SIA budget, for example, you guys already approved, and that's what you're seeing is a lot of that information in it. The high school success budget was already approved. That's like when it says new CTE teachers, that was high school success budget dollars. When we think about some of the Perkins dollars, same thing. They're budgets that you've already approved. And now we're just giving it a new frame. And then that will be the frame that we use as we move forward. And so some of these positions, the phrasing really comes from the pre-approved budget, the budget that already existed, that we're now having to kind of smush and create a new concept from. As they move on, once they get solidified or they are solidified, then the next year's budget is continue to pay that person out of the budget, right? So that's the continuation piece of it.
And if the budget goes away, the grant goes away, what happens to the position?
These are the grants right now. That's why there's a little bit of certainty to it. These are the grants, that's the SI, the Measure 98, the Student Success Act, that we've in essence been promised to be able to count on. So these aren't the kind of grants that are 1 or 2 year grants that go away. It does, each biennium matters though, because how the economy goes, determines kind of what taxes, are able to be collected that go in to fund those. But there's not any sense right now that those buckets of grant dollars would go away. Yeah.
In part because their legislation are tied to them, like high school success has legislation tied to it and a tax funding stream that goes right into it.
Students, the SIA money is directly tied to the corporate activity tax. And ask any business in Oregon, it hasn't gone away and they don't have.
Yeah, those are really good questions. And Richard, if you wanted to just find the time to sit down and have a cup of coffee and and walk through those.
Yeah, I guess my last question is, well, maybe twofold, who the intended audience, and then, we talked about intent, like aligning with allowable uses and other things. I don't read that intent anywhere in this document, and somebody picks this up 2 years from now, it's not going to be clear. You understand it. You've explained it to us. It's not written down anywhere. Can you help me understand sort of how we capture that?
I might need just to clarify.
Well, like we're talking about sort of the budget implications. We want to align this document with allowable uses of the budget. That sort of background. Where is that captured?
Yeah, a lot of it's in Linda's brain, because we've always had that. You get a grant and it's always had allowable uses, things you can spend it on and things you can't spend it on. And so we always have to, all of these grants have had accountability systems attached to them that monitored for whether they were being used for allowable uses. So this one just has a little bit different puzzle because now you've got 6 grants, really 4 grants that you're merging together that have dollars attached to them, that you have to put them together in a way that that doesn't violate the compliance for what the grant's used for. And that's what Linda does on a very, very regular basis. And she's got a bazillion other federal funds and ESSER grants and those types of things that.
So but ultimately, I guess we're not tonight sort of stamping approval on a host of additional positions that we don't have.
No.
Oh, not at all.
Budget, or we don't have dollars.
Yeah.
Honestly, Richard, I have a quick question on what you did say. Are you concerned because this is gonna be on the website and it's not directly saying this is being submitted to the state of Oregon
Absolutely.
to apply for these grants? I think that's the clarification piece. That's really the disclaimer missing from this document. So if somebody was to print off this document and pass it around, you're missing that disclaimer here. Is that what you're saying?
Right, there, the context, sort of, who's the audience, what's the purpose for this
This
application?
is the purpose and the
Okay.
reason
Yeah,
why.
well, this is, and that's a really, really good question, because when we post it, there is an intention to have a cover, to
Yeah.
have a cover sheet, a cover letter, a letter that does that. So thanks for bringing that up. You're absolutely right. It's missing that. You're absolutely right. So we
But it will
will,
be there before it gets posted.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And I'll add just to also tack on to the other end of your question, which is the compliance piece also comes from when our budget is approved or rejected. So as somebody who's worked on them before, and in fact, we were having a conversation just today about that, where you put in something and the state goes, actually, that is just your general responsibility. We were talking about translation specifically. We can't use title dollars to pay to hire people to translate because that's our responsibility. That should be general fund. We can't use special funds to do that because if that special fund changes, the implication is, oh, we don't have to do anymore because we lost that money. That is always our responsibility. So the state said, no, you can't do that, but you can get special headphones for it. And so we had to, like, we get feedback from the state about, is this allowable or not? And then we make tweaks or, you know, changes. And because we know that these have already been approved, those are.
Or if it's SIA, you can use it to support.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Almost any.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really is the magic. We're really lucky to have Linda kind of working with our, with our budget books and those types of things. Because it was complex before this.
I think we should reiterate what Bill said towards the beginning of this conversation, and that is, this is the first time for an integrated plan like this for the state. So we're not sure if they're even sure what they're looking for until they start seeing these come across their desks from a variety of districts in the state. I believe they will want us to change something here and there, but they're not going to know till they start gathering a few.
We're kind of wondering where they're getting all the staff to read all of this stuff. We could use them in school.
They're not gonna get that for them.
Glenn? Oh, can I butt in here a little?
Yeah, go ahead, Heidi.
I just wanted to say, to thank Desiree and Bill for their work on this and many other people, I'm sure, for their work on this document. It is, I think it's a real accomplishment. In my years on school board, we haven't ever seen this kind of a concerted, aligned effort to kind of bring everything, all these different programs and everything that's going on, kind of to combine it and to really have direction and targeted results that are, that we can really see, that we will be able to measure and work towards. And I think it's great. And like you said, this is a draft and it's something you're going to have to work with the state on. I think it's a work in progress, but yeah, thank you for all your work.
Thanks,
Heidi.
Thank you. And it only gets that good because you guys ask hard questions. Like, seriously, it gives us things to ponder and think about. It creates opportunities for transparency. It takes on new importance of, like, where do we develop the right systems to support the work? Because it's one thing to set a goals and then go, well, let's just keep doing status quo and see if we hit them. And it's another thing to say, this is the goal. How do we make a concerted effort to take these strategies, to take these systems and use them to further our goals, to really say, if this is what we're going to do, then how do we expect to see results? And what are the small indicators along the way that would give us hints that we're on the right track? Those things before third grade test scores that tell us you're going to hit that or you're not. And we should be able to predict with pretty good accuracy if we get the right data measures in place. And I think to the point you made, Crystal, like, part of that is developing those kind of targets and systems where then that becomes the consistent piece. And I think part of the moving target you're indicating is also moving measures that we're using to measure that target. And so, like, how do we just get consistent around that and narrow in? Sometimes it means not going as wide, but narrowing in on our focus.
So at 9:10, I will.
And I will second that.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Further discussion?
I didn't hear the motion.
Oh, I just motion that we approve this integrated initiatives plan application for submission to ODE and posting on the website. And Crystal seconded. Did you catch that, Heidi?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
And then my only discussion is that there will be a clear cover letter.
Clear as in opaque, non-opaque.
Pre.
Clearly defined.
All right, all those in favor of the motion before, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Carries.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, our next item up is 90 superintendent self-evaluation.
I'm gonna make a motion that we table that to next month. The superintendent evaluation,
Yeah, I've already turned it in, so you guys can, it's in your.
so we have time to look at
Yeah,
it.
it's in your report, you can do whatever
I got
you
it.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess she's provided a copy to it.
Yeah.
He hasn't seen it yet.
Well, I wasn't on the distribution list. I don't think when Ginger sent it.
Yeah, so I make
But
a
you do
motion
have
that
it now,
we table it
Yeah.
for
Okay.
next month.
So, we have a motion to table.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on tabling it?
Just gives
Do we-
us,
Just
we
wanna
need to-
remind you about the deadline. What are you saying? I'm just reminding you that. if
I
I'm
was gonna say,
not
that we have a
here,
contractual
that's okay,
obligation.
because we've already signed a contract, so I don't know.
no,
Do we need
my
to-
motion's still on the table.
Doesn't matter.
My question is, what do we need to do about it eventually? If we just
Approve.
approve it,
accept it.
accept it.
We need to accept it. This is the one time when we as a board evaluate our employee.
Right,
We did some of that during contract negotiations back in.
right.
But I wanted to have an executive session,
About it.
about
Take it up
that.
for their discussion.
So whether that happens tonight after the meeting,
Uh-huh.
or whether that happens at the next meeting is up to you guys.
Well, there's still a motion on the table to do it in April.
There's a motion to table this. item.
Yes, to table it.
The executive session is still up for
Okay.
discussion, so.
So even the executive session were to happen after this agenda, and then we still wouldn't be voting within our
Because
deadline.
you can't accept.
You can't
this,
vote
so
in
you
the
can't
executive
accept
session.
that.
Right,
We can do
exactly.
discuss.
So either way, we're outside of our deadline.
I don't know if this matters. Bill's using the word accept, but we have approve on the agenda, so I don't know if
Yeah.
that needs to change or not, but if it matters.
Doesn't-
But my motion is still there. To table this for the next agenda.
Okay, so is
And
there
second.
any more discussion on this motion that's before us?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion to table, please say aye.
I,
Let's do that by a roll call vote.
Yeah. I'll table it.
What's that?
I'll table it.
Richard?
Aye.
Christie,
I,
Crystal,
I,
Ricardo,
I'll say aye.
I'm sorry.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Bill,
I,
Heidi,
Aye.
the ayes have it, so, we will table that, portion, for a later meeting.
Who seconded it?
Richard,
Richard, did.
Okay, so that is all on section 9. Moving on to section 10, which is school operations. We've been waiting all evening.
I hope you brought espresso.
I'm gonna try to extend for the bartender turns the lights off. I was late, last call. Hey, thank you, board, for having us here this evening. I'd like to introduce to you to start off our elementary vice principal, Michael Clutter. Hello, board. He has unfortunately been ill at every board meeting up till this point. So he hasn't had an opportunity to actually be here and kind of witness all this and take it in. So we're excited to have him here tonight. And he's going to co-present with me. So, all right, rocking and rolling. First of all, you can see here the fantastic Miss Giles and her little class of amazing human beings right there. We like to start off with a picture of our kids. That particular class loves to make farm animal noises with me. Every time they see me, there's an affinity towards pig sounds. I'm not sure what it is, but it's delightful. Yeah, I walk by and they're always snorting at me. So it's pretty awesome. All right, next slide, please. All right, so what we want you all to know, and I'm not going to read every slide to you. We're going to try to abbreviate this and really get you out of here. Is we as an administrative team came together last summer and started our work on the theory of action at the elementary level. And Allison will probably kind of talk to you about that a little bit next month with the primary school as well. And that work really helped us frame what we're doing back to our strategic plan. And so what we did when we did that was we thought about what are the major levers that we're going to try to pull this year in alignment to that strategic plan. Once the school year started ramping up, we worked with these key team members, our key teams here, and this is only some of them. There's actually more here. I just didn't have enough to tell you everybody, but our instructional leadership team, our grade level teams meet all the time and are just amazing. Our behavior framework committee, and Michael's going to talk more about that. Our safety committee, our attendance team, our English language development teachers have just been instrumental to a lot of what we're doing this year. And then our instructional coach framework. And here you see a picture of our amazing instructional leadership team. And these folks meet with me and Michael every 2 weeks to really just get deep into the business of the intermediate school. And we're really excited about a lot of the work that we're doing. Next slide, please. Here you see our theory of action. These are the things that we said, hey, as leaders, the building level leaders at diverse levels, if we do these things, then these will be the outcomes. And we just wanted to tie them actually absolutely into our strategic plan. So that's what you're going to see here. We said, if we do those 4 things above, these things will happen. And so you'll see a real alignment to our strategic plan. You guys have the slideshow, so I'm not going to read it all out to you. Next slide. Some of the major things, and this is what we're going to go into more tonight in a little bit of detail. And thank you so much for your kind words earlier. I mean, honestly, you know, we thank classified staff this week. We thank them for what they do. We thank them with sweets, but we also just want to make sure we give a shout out to who they are as human beings, the people that we see, the names of the individuals that are there. These are parents and family members that really make up the North Marion community. They're absolutely amazing. And so we have all these different staff members that are leading this work. And so there's some key things that all those folks have been doing. And when you guys came in and you got to see us that day, you saw a window into the work that those people are doing, all of them. And these are some of the main things we're going to kind of highlight tonight. Just that fidelity to the ELA curriculum adoption. It has been a wrestle, but they are so committed to it. We're going to highlight that a little bit. We're going to talk, you guys saw it a little bit, but the folks behind me don't really know as much. Our dedication to some intervention programs, and we'll get a little bit more to that. The instructional coach model, and Mr. Goddard, you talked about that a little bit earlier. The excitement we have about the work that our coaches are doing, and I'm going to say coaches because we've got our ELD teachers who are in a quasi-coaching role. We've got our instructional coach. The data analysis that we're doing and the responsiveness to it in our professional learning communities, and then how we have a multi-tier system of supports. And for the folks in the audience that don't know what a multi-tier system of support is, you always have to visualize. You got your tier 1. If you've got a solid tier 1 of academics, attendance, and behavior, then 80% of your students should be responding. And then for the 20% that aren't, you can go up to tier 2. What are the specific interventions we're going to do? And for those that don't even respond there, you can go up to tier 3. And so we've been working real hard to articulate those things. My staff hears me say all the time, we want things that are lightweight, clear, and effective, and operate on a K through 12 continuum. And that's what we're trying to work towards as we calibrate with the schools on either side of us and working with members of the cabinet and all the work that we're doing. Next slide. So we live out our vision. We try to do this. If you were to walk into the classrooms, and you did, so you actually saw some of this, you saw learning targets clearly articulated and linked to standards and embedded in their instruction and understood by their students. Our hope is that you should be able to walk around and say, hey, what are you learning? They should be able to tell you and why, right? That we have engagement strategies that encourage equitable and purposeful student participation. Those engagement strategies, we're going to talk a lot more as we get through here. The Ready for Rigor framework, we'll kind of mention the 5 dimensions of educational, the 5 dimensions of education. Those engagement strategies are linked back to that. It's a success criteria and how we define that on a continuum from basic to distinguished. We want to be very clear. Again, you're going to hear me talk about clarity all the time. If you're on my staff, you hear me say clarity. We got to have it all the time. we want our students to have access to and be expected to participate in learning. And that's that notion of a warm demander, right? Well, warm demander is that person says, I'm gonna love you no matter what, but I'm gonna demand the best from you. Tough love is another way to look at it, right? Next slide. So next slide after this, Linda, go into the strategic goals. Goal 1, y'all can see here, we have immersed ourselves in implementing that new ELA curriculum. And we'll see a slide coming up here shortly where I'll give more detail about the actual days that we have spent and the days that we have since the design of this now coming up. And we're super excited about some opportunities that are going to be there. Again, that MTSS framework, redesigning that, putting together what we call a student study team, where there is a really clear process for when students aren't responding to that tier 1, how do our teachers then begin to look for interventions and supports around that. And even when they don't respond to that, what is the process we have in place? We've got a very clear and comprehensive professional learning calendar. We'll look at that a little bit. And again, that emphasis has been placed on training coaches to use that Ready for Rigor framework. So I meet bi-monthly with the ELD coaches and the instructional coach as a team. And if I just let you inside of what we're doing, the Ready for Rigor framework is what was designed by Zarita Hammond, and it's got 4 different domains that really kind of align to what it is that we value as a district, and it's our strategic plan. We can crosswalk that over to the 5 dimensions of education, which have 5 different areas with these subgroups that really, again, give us clear success criteria on that continuum. And then we can take that, and as a team, we can begin to start to look for themes in the classrooms, and those themes can help us design ground up professional development instead of top down. We know there's got to be a degree to top down, right? Like there are things that we have to do, but we want it to be a really organic experience for our folks. And as we get into that that notion even a little bit more, there's the concepts of equality and voice and choice, and how do we plan out for a certain distance, but then give our people the opportunity to step in and tell us what is it. What are their real goals? What do they want to learn, and how do they contribute to that? So we're trying to design an experience at the intermediate school that is really based on the need that teachers have, aligned to all those other components. So we're looking forward to continuing to implement this system and develop it more. Next slide. Again, you can see here, this is the slide I was talking about. We had a great training virtually at the beginning of the year. We've had a couple trainings subsequently since then. We are so excited. You'll see here, there's the last bullet says we're working to secure an in-person opportunity on April 12th. We have secured that. We have a person coming in all day to work. This is the first live training that we've had in a long time. And I'll tell you, when you are immersed in curriculum, you're thinking about your curriculum map, you're thinking about your unit plans, you're thinking about your assessments, you're thinking about differentiation, you're thinking about language acquisition strategies. There's a ton to think about in that. And you're doing all that on the fly. And at the elementary level, you're doing that with multiple contents, right? You need some help in how to do that. And when you try to do that virtually, you're kind of like, that was okay. But when you have a live human being in front of you who could actually guide you through those materials and further that familiarity, that is a valuable experience. We're going to be able to give that for the first time since 2019, basically, when it comes to curriculum. We're going back almost 5 years, right? So we're so excited. We're having this person come in full day. We got another one secured in May for full day. And our teachers are super excited about the opportunity to work with this person. And we put together an entire schedule for our students to have some enrichment activities that day. And even in a sub shortage, we have been ingeniously designing a way, and it's going to take all hands on deck. I've been in more classrooms. This guy's been living in classrooms. Our students service team, everybody, our classified staff, we're all going to be, we've been rallying, and we're going to continue to rally around to give those teachers that opportunity to be able to work with those HMH training folks. So super excited. You all came in, you had the opportunity to see in that notion that we have so many students who need, they're multiple grade levels below, and we weren't content to just say, well, let's just continue status quo. We wanted to give some intensive intervention to that. And so they used to be called the dyslexia toolkits. We said, hey, look, that science of reading, when we come back to phonological, phonemic awareness, all the different components of sounding out long consonants and then vowels and blendings of those things, we believe our students need specific instruction on that, and they need it intensively, and we need to be able to measure their progress and be responsive to that in a manner that's highly, again, flexible and responsive, right? And so we designed a system where 4 times a week, 30 minutes a day, those students are using those toolkits if they're multiple grade levels below, and we're shifting them from one place to the next as they make progress, or if they're not growing, come back to that MTSS. Now they're coming to us and saying, the student is not making the progress that we thought, and we are working so hard. What else can we do? And we might brainstorm some interventions, and we might try that for a little while. And then if we find that that's not working, then we might seek consent for evaluation to see if there is something a little bit a bigger barrier that might be getting in their way, right? So we're really trying to look at every single student and track data and put in place some intensive laser-like interventions. Next slide. Our PLT calendar reflects all of that, and I'll tell you, I think I was joking with y'all. I go into some of the teacher meetings, and you've seen that movie, A League of Their Own, and when Tom Hanks is like, "Why are you crying? There's no crying in baseball." Our teachers are. I heard someone ask, "Do we have the right teachers?" We have amazing teachers. We have amazing classified. They are so committed, so hardworking. And I go to these meetings, and they're planning, and they're crying. I'm like, "Why are you crying?" Because they care so deeply, right? And so we have this calendar that tries to schedule opportunities to really give them that clarity for when are we going to learn these new skills, these new traits, and be able to further our work. And so we have just we designed an entire calendar, and this was collaboratively done with our leadership, and it was a scaling in and scaling out, again, trying to really hit on the needs that people have while also having the fidelity to that strategic plan. Next slide. That's Deanna McCarthy. If you don't know her, on the left right there, absolutely a treasure to our district. On the right, you see Madison Klukin. She is in her 2nd year of teaching, and our instructional coach is already working with folks in regards to what are their goals, what do they want to see, what do they want to do to get better. And she goes in and she's working on some little coaching cycles and going through this with them. And she moves alongside them. She's not the person that knows everything. She's the one that says, let's go get messy in this together, and let's keep students and data at the center, and let's hone our craft. And so that instructional coach model has been so highly welcomed by our staff, and we couldn't be more excited about Deanna. You know what her mantra is in life? How do I help teachers? With kids at the end in mind is students, right, that are benefiting from this. And so when you have someone that has that kind of commitment and love, I can't praise them enough. So next slide. Sorry, someone's probably asking me when I'm coming home.
It's why I have goal 2. And so in addition to the MTSS and the academic side of things, it's the behavior and the social emotional side of things with regards to the MTSS. And there are a few goals here within goal number 2. And really, it's kind of a 3-pronged approach for the most part. And the first one, as you see up there, is that little classroom sign, has to do with our PBIS system and framework, the positive behavior and intervention supports. And really, that's a school-wide system that just clarifies expectations throughout the building in all areas of the building for all students. This is like David was saying, it's a tier 1 piece where all students we expect to follow these expectations. They're clear, they're fairly concise, no more than 3 or 4 bullet points for each area. And it's kind of the classic 3 Bs. The intermediate school, it's be respectful, be responsible, and be safe. And so PBIS, while we don't have much of like the incentive side of things, we do have clarity on these expectations throughout the building, whether it's the classroom, the hallways, the bathroom, the cafeteria, recess, and so on for all areas of the building. You can go next slide, Linda. And another way that we do that too, the second approach is using the PBIS framework throughout the entire building, more so in the classroom. Teachers use what is called RULER, and RULER is another acronym. Lots of acronyms going on here. And that's for recognize, understand, label, express and regulate your emotions. And so each classroom has been charged with making a charter that pertains to what does that look like in this classroom, in this individual classroom. Each classroom is a little bit different. And so for those students in that classroom, what is their charter around recognizing their emotions, understanding their emotions, labeling their emotions, being able to express them, and then also really important, being able to regulate their emotions. And you can see kind of a quick example of a charter there up on the presentation. In addition to that, they're going to look at also developing the videos around the PBIS plan and the framework for those areas too that are shown in class, in addition to the charter. And then you can head to the next slide. Another big piece of the three-pronged approach is the culture of care. And sorry, it pertains to the slide a little bit before, but I'll just still speak to it here. The culture of care aspect at the intermediate school has to do with part of it is PBIS and part of it is ruler, and those are some predictable routines and rituals throughout the student day. We've established calming corners in each classroom, so students do have a space to be able to regulate their emotions if they need to. We have a sensory room, or we call a reset room, where there is a specific plan and path to that room for students to deregulate if they need to. And then having students know each of their strengths and the teachers knowing their growth opportunities in order for them to succeed. Building those strong relationships between staff and students and with their own peers as well. Reteaching expectations and building empathy is extremely important in the culture of care. And then like David was saying, having the teacher being that warm demander and having that culture be present in each classroom throughout the day. The third piece has to do with the growth. Oh, you can go back, thank you. Has to do with the growth mindset. And so just that growth mindset is the opposite of a deficit mindset. And so I was trying to promote that growth mindset amongst staff and students. And there was some training done before I arrived back in September on growth mindset. And there's another set of trainings coming up here in April, right over spring break, for the growth mindset piece as well. And that it's encouraged in all classes, just that idea and that philosophy and that ability to think positively and to have that growth-based mindset instead of that deficit-based mindset. We also sometimes call it an asset-based mindset as well.
All right, we're moving forward. Goal 3 of 9. Just kidding. All right. So when we talk about systems to expand the percentage of staff who are skilled in the use of culturally sponsored practices, again, what we have to anchor back to are some specific practices. As an admin team, I've been working with, and the other admins have been doing this as well, work with Bill as chief of staff. And we've been really trying to immerse ourselves in the work of Zaretta Hammond and understanding what culturally sponsored practices are and doing some classroom walkthroughs and you know, looking for examples of what that might be and how we would then respond in a way that encourages our noticings and our wonderings and it becomes an invitation for people then to partner with us as the leaders in the building to move towards those. We also have, again, you heard me talk earlier about our amazing English language development teachers and the work they're doing. You probably heard Ms. Patton talk about HB 3499 and all the many facets of that House bill. And our ELD teachers are just incredibly hardworking, passionate people that are really working with our specialized emerging bilingual population, and then just hiring practices that reflect our majority minority population, is being really cognizant of ensuring that our students see people who look like them in the building and trying to increase that opportunity. So that's how we're trying to hit goal number 3. And this will bring us to our last couple pictures here. You heard again a little bit earlier about the Ready for Rigor framework and how we make connections to that in our daily work, and how we're trying to guide strategically through the Ready for Rigor framework and the 5 Ds. Next slide. And I think there you go. We are learning together to cultivate lifelong growth. You can see, we love to have fun with our kids. You've got a whole group of teachers getting silly stringed right there. And the kids loving that. They love those assemblies. And then the final thing that we'll say here is sometimes the staff have to get together and make little gnomes and have party time together as well, because we want to be a solid team. And that's what we're really trying to cultivate, is a solid group of people who see each other for what we bring, our hearts, our minds, and our souls to the work that we do to serve our students here in North Marion. All right, questions? I know y'all were in our building already, so probably didn't tell you anything you didn't know.
Good. Thanks, you guys.
Okay, I know, you just want to go home and hit the pillow, that's all. Yeah, everybody got a question for everybody else.
We did shove into that.
Okay, you're welcome. Go to bed. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See, I was chasing back from away.
All right, superintendent district operations report.
Nothing to report.
Nothing right now?
No,
Okay.
no. Give you another legislative update on 819. It looks like it's going to slow down, thank goodness. That's definitely. And the rules were kind of contradictory to IDEA, federal requirement. So we were really concerned about, if we follow the state rules, then we're violating federal. So, you know, but we're used to that, having to pick between the rules. Can you say the Senate bill number and what you want, 819, abbreviated for, Senate Bill 819, abbreviated school. Thank you. There's a lot of work around legislation, helping people gather information necessary to make decisions about which policies may be better for schools at this time and which ones may not. We attended as a team the multilingual conference that was happening simultaneously to the professional math, the Oregon math leaders, which are people who study professional development in mathematics. And it turns out that the multilingual conference in helping teachers learn how to develop programs that successfully elevate students as individuals that are learning more than one language at the same time, have the same themes about and research, and feel free to jump in, how to listen to kids, how to not assume that you understand what they're saying, how to learn from what kids tell you about what they need and how they think, so that you can improve your practice as a teacher. And of course, the younger the child with the the smaller vocabulary, it makes the work of teachers and grandkids even more challenging than it already is. But it's doable, and the rewards are tremendous because there's engagement, connection, growth. Because you're tuning in to exactly what the child is thinking, because you're listening to it. You're saying, I see that you got that, but why did you do it that way? Or why did you pick that answer for this answer? And the student will give you their thinking, and their thinking may be, because I didn't want that one, I didn't want that one, and I did this one, which means they have no understanding of the question whatsoever, but because they got the answer right, you assume that they understood it. So it stops you from being in that place. You have to challenge your assumptions about what it means to know what a child is thinking. And that's social emotional, that's culturally responsive practice, that's just good instruction. It's not something that's emphasized a lot in teacher education. Teach them how to manage a class, you teach them how to plan for a day, you teach them how to do a goal, you teach them how to communicate with parents. But you don't teach them how to listen to a child's thinking and apply that to the work that's been done and decide what needs to be done next. So this is happening at the math conference, and it's also happening at the multilingual conference. No connection whatsoever in the people doing the work, but we're all doing the same work. So that is very validating as well. We're all concerned about how to help all children achieve the careers and the path that they want, and to help them with their thinking, not our thinking. So, and the building want to add anything?
We talk about it all day, so I won't.
That's enough. So, yeah, it's been great. It's been a good month, very, very busy, and will continue to be so. In the middle of the year, I am concerned about the budget. Very concerned. Because the legislature is not giving us the roll of cost. So if we don't have the roll of cost, it's going to be very challenging. It'll be a challenging end of the year and challenging start. And that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, any questions for? All right, that moves us on to future meeting topics. Do we anticipate that the calendar adoption will be ready in April? Okay, so that's moving along.
Then I'll have the recommendation for the district transfers.
Okay. Yeah, so that would be a topic that we'll deal with next month. And it looks like we have a little bit of policy work
Yep.
coming up.
So first readings.
And Diane, you told me we were in the middle of our audit process.
Yes, actually, I did receive Friday,
Okay,
and then analysis review. We haven't really taken a look at it because I think that'd be great for the April meeting.
okay,
They listed it out as policies that we can delete, policies that need to be updated. And they'll help us like with the first 25. And so we'll get that ball going and have it for you next month.
okay, cool.
There were a lot.
I have no doubt. I've spent time searching that website.
There were all of them.
Alrighty, so that brings us down to adjournment. Do we want to meet in executive session following this, or is everybody ready to go and we?
Float with whatever everybody else wants.
I didn't hear what you said though.
I said, I'm good with the exec session, but I'll float with what everybody else wants.
I can make time. I mean, we might start it and finish it at a different day. I don't know, it's up to you.
No, it's not up to me, it's up to you guys.
I will admit, I sleep until 7:30, so. Charles is bringing me a cup of coffee.
Do we have access to a room so this can be cleaned up while we're?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not, but I'm not hearing, I'm not.
Yeah,
we don't have-
It's these three.
I'm okay.
Let's get it done.
And
what about- so you're okay
well-
for you?
Heidi, are you by the pool?
No, I kind of want to know, I'm sorry, I can't hear very well.
Heidi, you wanna,
I want to
Heidi,
know
will
how I
you-
can join your executive session. That's what I want to know.
So we can call you, okay, so let me read this out, ORS.
I'll call you, Heidi.
ORS one
Okay,
ninety-two, or .66, section 2, subsection L, to evaluate employee performance, review and evaluate the employment-related performance of the chief executive officer, public officer, or staff member who does not request no hearing. The board may meet in executive session to discuss subjects allowed by statute, but they not take final action except for specific instances. Executive session may be held with a regular, special, or emergency meeting for any reason permitted by law. Meeting in executive session except in these specific instances, operations with persons conducting. Hearings, confidential records, and litigation.